No again. People in Britain belong to many different faiths, or none at all, and all are free to do so, to practice whatever religion they want, or not to practice any religion. Speaking in general, people are happy to follow their own religion without worrying about what their neighbour's up to. Sikhs are content to follow their religion and let others worship the Lord as they wish. So too are Hindus and observant Jews. With very few exceptions, Christians are also happy to practice their religion and for others to do the same. It is exceedingly rare for anybody belonging to these faiths to assert that anybody who does not worship the Lord in the same way as them must be wicked and an enemy of God. A personal example will explain what I mean. About 40 years ago, I had dealings with a Hindu family. It doesn't matter why, it was a professional thing. I used to go round and see the smallest son who had learning difficulties. There were two older boys, one was 8, one was 10 at that time. I might mention that the mother was quite devout. The first thing I noticed when I visited her home was that in a corner there was a shelf with an icon of Amber Mata on it. That's a woman riding a tiger, and there were various other things on the shelf. It was something like a shrine or an icon, I suppose you could call it. She was a devout Hindu. Anyway, one day, a woman, they ran a newsagents, by the way, they lived in a flat over the shop. One day, one of their customers, who was attended a nearby church, offered to take her boys to Sunday school. She said she'd collect them, take them to Sunday school each day so they could learn about Jesus. I thought that was a frightful cheek on the part of the woman. The extraordinary thing is, though, that their mother had no objection whatsoever to that. She said to me, well, there's only one God, isn't there? It won't do them any harm to go to Sunday school. And so it was that the two boys attended Sunday school for a year. They learnt to say the Lord's Prayer and various stories from the Bible. Then, once they grew up, they reverted to their own faith, obviously, quite rightly too. But that is an extraordinary example of what you might describe as good religion, religious tolerance. You cannot imagine that happening with a Muslim family because, of course, apostasy, leaving or changing your religion if you're a Muslim, is regarded as a rebellion against God. You do get the odd Christian who feels this way, but they're very much the exception, and most other Christians regard them as crackpots. In Islam, though, this view is mainstream thinking. It's how the average Muslim views the case. They see Jews as enemies of God. Their term for those of other faiths is kuffar, which is an insult. Kuffar is hated by God, and it's the duty of Muslims to try and persuade everybody else in the world to become Muslim, so that the whole of society can be composed of people in obedience to the Lord. A fairly substantial number of Muslims are also Islamists, which means that they wish for their religion to be incorporated into civil society, and the rules of Islam to be the foundation for the laws of the land. These people regard democracy as a rebellion against God, and therefore wicked and detestable. They think that since God's will has been revealed to the Prophet via the Quran, any attempt to make laws which are not based upon the Quran or the Hadith must by definition be in opposition to God's will. In effect, they see democracy as a terrible form of heresy. This, as I say, sets Islam aside from every other religion practiced in our country. Jews, Hindus and Sikhs do not wish to force our society to change. Christians may wish to do so, but only within the existing legal system. Not so some of the more militant followers of Islam. They feel that because we are in effect behaving in a way hateful in the sight of God, they are justified in using force to get us to change our ways. That's why we've seen Muslim terrorism in Britain, but not Hindu terrorism or Christian terrorism, Sikh terrorism, Buddhist terrorism, or anything of that sort. It is what makes Islam so different and potentially hazardous to the well-being of a liberal democracy such as ours. I happen to believe in the British way of life, and I do not think that it is in general one which opposes God's wishes. I think that our system is worth defending, and that if anybody wants to overthrow or destroy it, then we are quite justified in resisting such efforts. And that's why I think that Islam is really in a separate category alone from all other religions practiced in Britain.